podcast once again live on Millions. Um, I think we are both super excited about the rest of the show tonight. But before we get to all that, we want to remind you about the promo going on through BetUS right now. If you use our link, you get a 125% bonus and 30 risk-free bets. So y'all jump on it while I'm on this hot streak, and let's make some money this weekend.
Or fade me. You
Yeah,
again, you would have been 10-3 last week, or 9-4.
combine the two of us, that's 18-5.
Yeah, there,
That's
there
a
we
hell
go.
of a weekend. It's a
hmm
hell of a weekend.
And I'm trying not to be this bad, but it's just the role that I'm on. We'll see if that changes. At the end of the show here.
All right, we do also want to talk about the giveaway we're doing with ASW. All you have to do to get in. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, follow ASW, tag a friend in the comments. You can get yourself a handle of Hunker Vodka. They just released it to the stores like 2 days ago. So you could be one of the first people to get the official Classic City Collective NIL vodka for the University of Georgia. I think it's super cool. I'm pretty excited to. Oh shit! I lost my train of thought already. Um,
I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it. Hopefully, it comes down here, soon because I'd love to get my hands on it.
yes, no free ads, but I know one place that's gonna probably get some quick. I don't know for sure.
Is it over there by the mall? That place?
Yeah, over there by the Best Buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Um, so for nope, go ahead.
No, say if you know, you know.
Yeah, if you know, you know. If you don't know, send me a message, but no free ads. You know what I mean?
No, we should message them and say, you know what, we've shouted you out by name a few times, so OG listeners, they've heard the name a couple times at least.
Yeah. No, that's not a terrible idea. So for week 6, if you haven't seen it on social media, we're pretty excited. We're going to be making you guys some money this week, talking about all the best games. And we are talking to Kentucky Wildcat great Kash Daniel about the game this weekend. If you don't recognize the name, you will recognize the. He's the guy that after Kentucky ended the 30-year streak against Florida, he smashed 2 water bottles like Stone Cold Steve Austin on Florida's field, and that is one of the best images of college football you will ever see.
Yeah, when I when I brought that up at work, when I was telling them like, oh, who we were talking to, because a few people asked, I said, you remember the video after Kentucky beat Florida, right? The Stone Cold, smashing the water bottle thing. They're like, oh yeah, him. I'm like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, him. So we're super excited about that. He should be coming on here in the next few minutes. But before we get to all that, what are you drinking tonight?
I just have water. I'm trying to save all my drinking for Saturday because
That's fair. That's fair.
it's gonna be a long one.
That's
Game's at
fair.
7:30. Lincoln doesn't have a football game this weekend, so
Ooh.
um, Michigan plays at Minnesota, Little Brown Jug game at 7:30 as well. So as far as like games I have a personal connection to, it isn't until late, so I don't have time. How about you?
So because we are having on a Kentucky legend, I've got, in my opinion, some of Kentucky's finest Wild Turkey Rare Breed Rye. If you know me, you know I love Wild Turkey products and I love rye. 112.2 proof. Um,
Okay.
so I'm pouring it up now, and
hmm
not real strong because I do have to get up early for work.
It's throwing me off because we have a teacher work day on Friday. Well, well, technically it's an e-learning day, so like we're working, um, but yeah, I keep thinking today's Thursday, so I'm like, oh, you don't have to go anywhere tomorrow or wake up early at least. It's throwing me off because in
Yeah.
my mind, I'm not working Friday, even though I am working Friday.
Well, I am not working Friday as of right now, and I am thankful for that.
There you go.
No, I got like a 2 hour drive first thing in the morning, so I'm not looking
Ew.
forward to that. Yeah, is what it is. Part of the
Where
job.
where are you going that they don't have someone closer than that?
It's not that they don't have somebody closer. It's a job that I refuse to go back to.
Hmm.
Like I could be working 10 minutes from the house tomorrow, but I don't like dealing with
Oh.
assholes.
Okay.
So the guy that
Fair.
lives close to where I'm going is coming close to my house, and I'm going close to his house.
Does he know what he's getting into?
Oh yeah, he's been out there all week.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
No,
There you
he's really good at dealing with difficult people,
go. Hmm.
and for me, it's a cliff. Like I have two levels. It's like a plateau. Like I'm nice, I'm nice, I'm nice. You've hit the edge, scorched earth.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
Hmm.
so that's
Makes sense.
why he goes to the difficult jobs.
Smart. Trying to
I
stay
know
employed.
myself. I know myself
Trying
well
to,
enough.
yeah, you're trying to stay employed. That's good.
Yeah. So while we're waiting on Cash, what game outside of the Georgia game are you looking forward to the most?
This is really between two. The Red River rivalry. Say that five times fast.
That's a
That
lot of R's.
um, and then or whatever they're calling it now, the Red River Shootout, if they want to be technical about that. But that and A&M and Alabama should be good. Has been the last few years.
Yeah, no, I think that'll also be a good one. I'm real like this ranked LSU Mizzou matchup is
That's sneaky, sneaky good.
it's so interesting because I
Yeah.
mean neither team has a defense.
Hmm. I I haven't put down my pick yet. I'm still kind of marinating over what I'm thinking because like I put the rest in the other doc. And I haven't quite decided yet. There's two games that I'm kind of flip floppy on or wishy washy on.
I yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited about that. And then Arkansas Ole
Hmm.
Miss is one of my favorite non-Georgia rivalries in the SEC. I
Hmm.
mean, just this week after I realized that this game was this week, I went back and watched that 2015 game, Chad Kelly, and then that
Swag.
wild fourth down play that Arkansas had to come back. It was
You're talking about the one where they just like whipped it just wherever like, through
yeah,
prayer lateral. Yeah.
yeah, that play. That was
Hmm.
God, dude, that was such a
Legendary.
fun game. Such a fun game.
Hmm. Arkansas plays in a lot of fun games
They do.
for whatever. I mean, like before the season started, I don't know how many times, like if I had recorded something like Georgia related, like going into that the Georgia, program, they would have like Arkansas in the Liberty Bowl. Like I think it was like every single time it would catch the end of that, double or triple overtime game that they had with Kansas.
Yeah, I'm sending Cash a message now.
Hmm.
Oh, all right. I think we're going to pause for a minute and then come back. All right, guys. So Cash has been held up just a little bit, so we're gonna go ahead and jump into Texas or Oklahoma or versus Texas in Dallas. Texas State Fair, the Red River rivalry, Red River shootout, whatever you want to call it. Texas favored by 6.5 points over under 60.5. Um, so I was doing a little bit of a stat deep dive the other day, and these teams, despite playing wildly different schedules, are split in almost every statistical category here. So total defense, Texas 17th, OU 30th, and remember, the toughest team Texas has played has been Alabama. The toughest team Oklahoma has played has been Cincinnati.
Yeah, I was gonna say Cincinnati probably by far, really.
Yeah.
Could have been
Um,
Georgia, but
yeah,
no,
could have been.
no. Yeah,
Thanks, Sankey.
yeah.
Scoring offense, Texas 12th, Oklahoma 2nd. And I will say Oklahoma scoring 73 points against Arkansas State had a lot to do with that.
Well, and then like they only scored 20 against Cincinnati, so take of that what you will.
Yeah. Scoring offense, Texas 29th, Oklahoma 3rd. Once again,
Yeah,
competition has a lot
skewed.
to do with that.
Yeah, skewed.
Total defense, Oklahoma 9th, Texas 43rd. Once again, competition has a lot to do with that. When you win 73 to nothing against Arkansas State, it's obviously going to skew most of your stats.
Butch Jones showing his face again, or at least early on in the year.
Yeah, that was tough. We talked about that when it happened. I do feel bad for him, but at least
Yeah,
his team's fighting for him. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, they seem like they care for him. So there's that. That's good.
So I think the massive split in these categories is based solely on the schedule. I think Texas has more talent in pretty much every position. I think they have a better. I think they have better offensive coaches, and I know that this team's already shown the ability to play up in a big game, and OU has not been tested in any way, shape, or form just yet.
Hmm.
So this game's weird. I, I think Texas is a significantly better team.
Yeah.
I'm taking the Texas spread,
Hmm.
but if this went up a half a point, I ain't touching it. I think 6.5 win by a touchdown covers the spread. I think that's perfect. But if you made it 7, I ain't touching it because I don't think they're going to win by 8 or more points.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that with the Texas, covering that 6.5, winning by 7. That seems about right. Just kind of looking at the history of this. Last year, you can kind of throw out because it was, Oklahoma was decimated by transfers. Everybody going like worth the damn going over to Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley, including Caleb Williams, of course, Spencer Rattler going to South Carolina last year. But 2022, Texas won 49-0. So I'm really again, you can throw that out. The year before that, Oklahoma not upset because Oklahoma was the 16th in the country. They won by 7. It was 55-48. The year before that, Oklahoma won 53-45 and 4 overtimes. And then Oklahoma won a few years before that. So again, outside of last year, this is usually about a touchdown game, 7, 8 points for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I mean, it's going right along with the series history, at least as of late. But yeah, I'm with you there. I'm going Texas to cover that 6.5 for sure. I'm not sold on the over under of that.
No,
60
God,
and a half is a lot.
it's a
It
lot, but
could.
I could see this game going 45-38
Mm-hmm.
just as much as I could see this game going
Like,
24-17.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so we're in agreement there.
Yeah. Yeah, this week is full of good
Yeah.
games because this next one, another Texas team. We're talking about Alabama, 2.5 point favorite going to Texas A&M, over under 49. Um, and this game has actually been close over the last 2 years,
Hmm.
despite Alabama being easily a more talented team and better throughout the season. Over the last 2 years, both of the games have been decided by one score and split. Jimbo Fisher was the first former assistant to beat Nick Saban.
Hmm.
Um, and this year's game is in College Station. I think that has a massive effect on probably the line there.
Well,
Um,
now and A&M almost won. They should have won last year in Tuscaloosa too. So, and with a
if Bobby
5 and
Petrino
7
was the
team.
offensive coordinator last year, Texas A&M wins that game by 2 scores.
Hmm. Hmm.
So this game's in College Station. Home field advantage in college football is about a 3.5 point swing normally, unless you're somewhere like Vandy or Northwestern. Not trying to throw shade, just being honest.
Yeah.
Um, and Alabama is without their premier linebacker Deontay Lawson,
Mhm.
while A&M is at full strength everywhere but their quarterback position, but probably have the most experienced backup quarterback outside of Spencer Sanders in the SEC.
Hmm.
So I'm not even looking at stats and numbers here. Because they're all going to favor Alabama. I mean, Texas
Yeah.
A&M got you know arguably boat race in Miami.
Oh no, I would say they did definitely
Well,
for
it
sure.
was the score was a lot closer than the game felt, which is why it up in the
Well,
air.
didn't they give up 50 to Miami?
They did, but they scored like 40 something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, but I think A&M covers. I do.
Hmm.
I just this is a weird game. It's I don't know, man. I will have confidence in Alabama when they prove it.
Yeah.
And you can say 2 weeks ago versus Ole Miss they proved it. Lane Kiffin proved he couldn't beat Nick Saban. That's what that was.
Right. Right.
I think that had a lot more to do with the coaches on the Ole Miss sideline than anything had to do with Alabama.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I got to roll with A&M, personally.
Yeah. I'm again same thing with me too. This game has been really fun since especially since Jimbo and Saban got into their little, off season, you know, not tussle, but like, war of words, kind of so to speak, with NIL a couple years ago. Again, A&M they beat Alabama at home 2 years ago as an unranked team. Ended up winning that last year. Just shitty play calling in the red zone in Tuscaloosa. They should have won that game. Now the A&M doesn't have Connor Wigman, so that's going to be a big. You talked about it a little bit. That's going to be a big loss for them because he arguably is one of the better upper tier like SEC quarterbacks this year so far. But again, it's in College Station. Weird things happen in College Station. This game has been weird since A&M got in the SEC. 2.5 isn't a big spread, but like you said, until Alabama is able to prove something rather than the other team, crapping the bed or whatever, going to hold out judgment on them. They're still a good team. Obviously, they can still make it to Atlanta and all that in the SEC championship. But in this case, for my preseason prediction to still have a chance of happening with Ole Miss getting to Atlanta, I do need Alabama to lose this game and one more. So
Yeah.
more than likely one more. So we know
Just
A&M.
heard back from Cash. He's about to join us here in a minute. So
Sweet.
so we'll kind of pause talking about these games and
All right.
kind of hold for him. But no, I agree with everything you said. I do think that Alabama's a very beatable team this year, and I think if they get into a shootout, let's say LSU,
Mm-hmm.
A&M wins this game, Alabama loses to or LSU.
Mm-hmm.
Ole Miss already holds the tiebreaker over LSU. Ole
Yep.
Miss still has a path. Might be
Mm-hmm.
the path less traveled, but it's a
Yeah.
path.
I mean, I talked about it before. I'm like, I thought Ole Miss can win the SEC West. They're not going to do it with one loss. I don't think anybody's going to win it with just one loss. I mean, the winners are probably going to have two. So they have to be pretty much perfect, and then they might have some room for error against Georgia. We'll see. I mean, that's obviously in November. That's before Georgia plays Tennessee, but um, it's still alive.
Yeah,
It's still alive.
there is still a lot of football left to play, especially in the SEC West.
Hmm.
Um, Cash has asked for me to resend the link to him, so we're doing that. Um,
I don't want to scare you or anything, but this is week 6.
no, I've said it a couple
It
times. I don't want to think about it.
it's I as soon as it hit October, that moment of dread just hit me. I'm like, it's gotta savor it. I mean, it feels like the season just started because it more or less did, but
Right. No, I was at work this week and somebody asked me why I like drop everything to watch college football on weekends,
mhm,
and I was like, it's here for a short period of time every year. We
right.
need to.
Hmm. Take advantage of it.
See here. It's not coming through my head. Oh, turn them on.
Let us know when you can hear us.
Hello.
Can you hear us?
There we go. Yeah, can y'all hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, cool. My bad. My AirPods are. My bad, fellas. I was
No, It's all
No,
good.
you're
I
good.
was working. All good. How
No
y'all doing, man?
worries.
Good. How are you?
Man, I can't complain. Can't complain. Wish I was gonna make a trip down to Athens this weekend, but
Yeah, right.
I think I'm gonna finally get to do a little deer hunt instead. So I think we'll be all right with that.
There you go. I was gonna ask if you were gonna make the trip this weekend.
No, man, I made it. I made it like 2 years ago, and that was literally the funnest weekend of my life. I love Athens.
Yeah. Hey, it's since I reached out to you a few years ago, we've actually moved to Savannah, but we still go to almost every home game. So
Okay, I've
it's
been to. I've hung out around Savannah for a little bit when I was a kid, around Tybee Island, those places down there.
I live on the island right next to Tybee.
Hey, there you go. Can't beat that.
No, it's awesome. We love it. But just to I'm sure pretty much everybody that listens to the show is familiar with Kash Daniel, but as we talked about at the top, phenomenal Kentucky linebacker, and one of my favorite pictures in all of college football, the Stone Cold Steve Austin after
Mm-hmm.
beating Florida, because everybody loves watching Florida lose. I can actually tell you exactly where I was watching that moment. My wife and I were on our way back from our honeymoon, and she was driving so I could watch the game on my phone.
Hey, priorities, man.
Oh,
Priorities. Hey, you probably got a better recollection of it because I really don't remember. I kind of like blacked out when that happened. So I'm glad you remember where you were. Because I don't remember where I was. I know where I was, but I don't remember where I was.
It makes you feel
and
about any better. I don't remember at all. Remember seeing it the next day, but the game itself, I don't know.
oh, I
Yeah,
was.
I had a.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just saying I had a couple buddies that played at Georgia during that time. I played with them in an Army game. It was Ben Cleveland and Isaac Nada and
Oh yeah.
Jacob Eason, and I remember Ben giving me shit for like the next probably 2 weeks because of that.
I, to the fans, that's one of the best celebrations that you could
Mm-hmm.
ever possibly have.
I mean, it was something. I mean, what I do remember about that was that so obviously I grew up a huge wrestling fan, and like you know, and you may hear a couple other like former players talk about it, or even current players, like when you step out on a field and who you are on the field versus who you are outside of that, like two completely different like mindsets, two completely different entities. So I kind of related to like wrestling in a bit because they were like when they get in character, like that's what gives them their confidence. That's what gives them their intensity and and whatnot to go out and perform. And so like when I was like grew up watching wrestling and like I didn't impersonate like Stone Cold Steve Austin or The Rock or
Mm-hmm.
all those dudes. Like it kind of resembled when walking down the field versus being in the locker room with the guys or being outside like in a public setting. But yeah, I grabbed my camera or one of our camera guys at that point. I knew we were gonna win that ball game, and I was like, hey man, like stay beside me. I got something cooking. So and again after that it kind of all went black.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. But football aside, I've got a lot of friends that live in Kentucky, and they talk about everything you do for the community of Lexington, which is just absolutely awesome. That I'd like to highlight for you. And then I've actually got a friend from Paintsville that said you do a lot for your hometown as well. So I love that.
Man, it's crazy how it's almost like Paintsville, Kentucky is like the center of the universe. Like everybody's got a connection there somehow.
Yeah, so the guy that I know lives on Tybee, and he said his cousin went to high school with you, Luke Trimble.
No, Luke's
No,
literally one of my best friends. Yeah, he's I see Luke probably 3 or 4 times a week just watching football. And if he's a musician, so if he has a show around Lexington, we always go watch him. But yeah, me and Luke's been best friends since we were like sixth grade.
I see his cousin out on Tybee like 4 or 5 times a week. That's kind of small world moment.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you ready to talk some football?
Let's do it, man.
All right, so we're going to talk offense first. So with the offensive line, they struggled last season, but have bounced back huge to reclaim the Big Blue Wall title. What's the biggest difference between last season and this season?
Really, I think it's been their communication across the board. We moved a couple guys around to start the season. We moved Jagger Burton to center and then moved Eli Cox over to guard. Throughout the first couple of weeks of the season, against inferior opponents, it seemed like we were still having some issues there. Really, the Florida game last week was probably the best game that offensive line has played as a unit in probably 2 to 3 years, I would imagine. So we did move Eli back to center and did move Jagger back to guard, just because I think the way that Coach Stoops and Coach Yenser was thinking, Jagger, he's not, your typical big SEC guard. This kid, he's lower in weight, but he's athletic and he's quick. So, especially with our gap schemes that we have with Ray Davis, I'm pretty sure that they're like, okay, this is the guy that we can utilize to getting. I mean, even in between the tackles or outside the tackle, we can get out here and maybe seal an outside linebacker or seal a defensive end or get up to the second level to get an inside linebacker. I think that's probably one of the reasons why that they made that transition of putting him back at guard and Eli back at center, just because Eli's an anchor, man. I mean, he sat behind Drake Jackson, who was arguably probably one of the best Kentucky centers that we've had in over probably 20 years. I mean, the dude was just an absolute technician of what he did out there for the offensive line. And so that experience, along with his size and his build and his athleticism and strength, I think really plays to him as a center rather than a guard. You could put him at guard. I'm not sitting there saying that he couldn't play guard at all, but this is a guy that you can put, really anywhere on the offensive line you want to. So I think at the end of the day, Coach Stoops, he's going to challenge you. If you're a group that's not living up to the expectation or the standard, you're going to get called out on it. And, with how the program has been built since 2016, guys take things personal because, we want to go out there and we want to compete. We want to be able to be a competitive football program within the SEC East. And so, they took their challenge to heart. And, it showed on Saturday. They came out big. Ray Davis rushed for over 280 yards, almost setting, a school record for us. And so, that was literally the best game that they put together as a unit in probably 3 years.
Yeah, that was going to be going into our next question there. And Ray Davis, he's one of the guys that we had talked about in the preseason. We talked to John Clay of Kentucky.com back in like June or July about, some of the offseason additions. And Ray Davis came up and we, were super excited for him to get the opportunity in a bigger stage in Lexington there. But with that said, so Ray Davis undefeated against the University of Florida with 2 losses this year. And 2-0 against them. He was great at Vandy, but he kicked it into another gear in Lexington, this year so far, especially with that last game. His performance last week put him at third most rushing yards in a single game for Kentucky. Just how good can he be for the rest of the season?
Man, the sky's the limit with him. And I've said this on our pregame show. I've said this in other interviews. He's probably one of the more versatile running backs that we've had. In the Coach Stoops era, we had Benny Snell, we had Chris Rodriguez, and those guys were more, bruisers. Those are the guys that can run in between the tackles and really lower their shoulder and fall forward for an extra yard. And Ray can do the same thing. But the way that we utilize him, especially in this Liam Cohen offense, is that we've got him involved in the passing game this year as better as anybody that I've seen. And so being able to utilize his athleticism out there on the edge and be able to get him in space, to get him the ball and then make some guys miss, I think that's really what makes him so special for this offense. Just because, when comparing him to Benny or comparing him to Chris, with that offense we ran with Eddie Graham, we didn't see a lot of, running backs out of the backfield for a pass game unless it was a setup screen, So being able to utilize him in the passing game really opens up this defense, especially for Devin Leary, who, seems as of right now, typically struggling to throw the football. So having Ray out there for a check down, letting Ray, really do his thing, really allows us to really open up as an offense as a whole. So getting the ball however we can, man, as long as Ray Davis has the football, I'm pretty confident that we can, at least fall forward and get a couple yards.
Yeah. And one other question about Ray there. So I'm not sure what the NIL opportunities are for football in Lexington, but if he has any eligibility left, how much is he going to be able to cash that in next year?
This year, he's setting himself up great for that, man. There's been so many graphics that have been made of like Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue.
There
Like
you go.
that would be a pretty cool NIL deal. But
Mm,
he's setting himself up, and at the end of the day, NIL is name, image, and likeness. It's not by rule. It's not based upon your performance on the field. I think everybody can call BS on that. I mean, if you're not
mm,
if you're not one of the guys that's out there performing and getting the most time on TV for making those kind of plays, the NIL deals, really aren't going to come.
mm.
So he's setting himself up, to have a great opportunity to cash in, man. I'm so jealous of these guys, man. I mean, I could have. I'm not making. I probably would have made millions, but I could have made a couple 100,000 probably. But it's great, to see what they can do now and be able to capitalize, in college and be able to, to set themselves up for later on in their career.
So when we talked to John Clay this summer, we talked about how good the wide receivers are and potentially a top three room in the SEC. They've gotten off to a slow start relative to kind of the preseason expectations. What needs to be done to get that turned around?
Honestly, I think that Devin just has to be more confident in what he does back there in the pocket. I mean, this guy was talked about to be probably one of the more talented quarterbacks in the Stoops era, and I've actually got to go watch him in practice both in spring and in fall. And so what I saw there, I mean, I was a part of that posse too. I mean, the guy looked very poised, looked very confident with his decision makings. I mean, I can remember one play in particular. He rolls out to his left, plants his feet, turns crossbody, throws across the field crossbody, and hits Dane Key on a back shoulder throw. And I'm like, that's a Sunday
Damn.
throw right
Mm,
there. So, everybody is really excited, was excited, and still is excited about Devin and his capabilities. And so, we've had Coach Cohen talk to the media previously, and the past couple of weeks is talking about how he just wants to see him go out there and let it rip. Because it almost seems at times that he's kind of maybe thinking too much out there, trying to guide the ball instead of just cutting it loose. We've seen a
mm,
couple the balls that he does miss more times than not are high. And so, just like in baseball, if you miss high in the zone, they're going to hit it out of the park. If you miss high in football, it's going to be a tip ball or overthrown and taken back the other way. So, everybody, including myself, believes in Devin's capabilities. And I think it's just about getting that chemistry down with his receivers, getting the timing right, and overall for him to just go out there and just cut it loose. So I'm expecting him to see that and do that because, let's be honest, we're going to have to throw the ball. Kirby Smart is going to make us beat him by throwing the football. I mean, he's seen what the offensive line will do. He's seen what Ray Davis can do. I can fully expect him to have, 8 guys in the box and say, I dare you to throw it. Because
mm.
against last year or last week against Florida, Devin only had 70 yards in the game total. So, Kirby's a smart coach. There's a reason why you guys are 2-time national champions back to back. And so, he's going to sit there and say, I dare you to throw it against us. So we're going to have our chemistry ready to go if we want to have a chance down there in Athens.
So one of the things that I heard kind of brought up about Devin Leary, and I mean I remember this happening too, but we're almost a year removed from him tearing his right pec, and then even going back to 2020, he broke his fibula. So I mean he's had some pretty gnarly injuries last 3 years or so. I mean, do you think the torn pec? I mean, do you think has he been able to get over that? Because I mean that's not something that you typically hear, like especially for like a quarterback having to deal with, especially on the throwing side of his body there. Um, I don't know. I mean, do you think that has anything to do with the struggles thus far?
I mean, it could, but then again, like I said, we've seen him in practice be able to go
Yeah.
out there and just cut it loose and let it rip out there.
Hmm.
I typically don't. Maybe that's in the back of his head because it has been a full year,
Hmm.
since he's been out there playing in front of a full stadium.
Hmm.
He's with a new program, he's with new guys, and I mean, let's look at a guy like in Will Levis who came in and instantly had that chemistry, who instantly had that leadership value about him. And I'm not sitting here saying that Will was something out of from outer space or anything, but you know when you come into a new program, especially in an NFL offense, like Liam Cohen's, it does take some time to get acclimated and not making any excuses because he's been here since spring and he's as a top quarterback in the SEC. You should be able to go out there and have that chemistry already down before fall camp ends. But at the end of the day, Coach Stoops is still confident in him. Liam's still confident in him. I know myself and Big Blue Nation still confident in him. So it's just about really him going out there and just cutting it loose at this point. And so we'll see what happens further down the line.
All right, you ready to talk some UK defense?
Always ready to talk UK defense.
So Kentucky has once again put up a top 20 defense this year. Starting with the line, they are ranked ninth in the country against the run. How good can they be this year? Can they keep that top 10 rush defense up?
I think they can, just because Brad White, his whole philosophy and his standard is that nobody's going to run the football on us. Like, to him and to that defense, I remember when he came in as the outside linebackers coach in 2018 when we had Matt House, who's now the defensive coordinator at LSU, and Brad took over my senior year as defensive coordinator. And so, literally, he's probably one of the smartest football minds that I've ever been in a room with. Came to us from the Indianapolis Colts, so has that professional background. And so, to be honest with you, I mean, he's turned down some opportunities to go elsewhere. And I would not be surprised if we see Brad White be an NFL defense coordinator before it's all said and done, is because that's how on point he is. That's how, the standard that he sets himself up for not only his staff, but his players to live up to and to play to. And so you've got a great leader at the helm guiding that ship. And then you've got guys up front like Deion Walker and Octavius Oxendine, and a guy in the middle like Trevin Wallace, who has absolutely exceeded expectations this year for as young as an inside linebacker as he is. And so being able to not only rush the quarterback and get pressure on him from the middle linebacker position, but being a force in the middle of the run game. This is probably the biggest up front that we've seen a Kentucky front seven since 2018. We had guys like Josh Allen out there on the edge. So being able to have that not only size strength, but the athleticism that those guys had. I mean, the interception that Trevin had last week against Florida came off of Deion Walker, the biggest dude on the field, dropping in pass coverage. I literally was like, Brad, I was like, how did you even think of that? That's what I'm sitting there thinking to myself. And so, but the good thing about him is that he's going to put guys in position to go out and make plays. I think that's what we've seen so far. And at the end of the day, they pride themselves on, we want you to throw the ball. If you beat us throwing the ball, kudos to you. You're the better offense, but you're not going to run the football on us. So I think they have the ability to keep that up for the remainder of the year.
So you talk about Trevin Wallace a little bit here. So I mean, like you said, he's been phenomenal this season, along with the rest of that linebacker core. If you had to rank linebacker groups in the SEC, where do you think Kentucky would land on that list?
I mean, they're definitely up there. I mean, Trevin, he was second in the nation in sacks at one point. I think going into last week, not against Florida, but the previous week before that. You got a guy in De'Aaron Jackson who's just as athletic and just as talented back there at the Mike linebacker position. So you look across the board. Of course, Georgia's always got their dogs. I mean, literally the thing I love. Here's the thing: like, I'm a football fan. Obviously, I want to see Kentucky win, but the one thing, going back to my trip to Athens 2 years ago when you guys beat us down there, the one thing that I love seeing about not just the Georgia linebackers but the Georgia defense is that there's literally 7 to 8 hats around the ball every single play. I mean, these dudes get after you. And so I think that Kentucky definitely has the capability of doing that. I know that's what they preach every single day in practice. So, yeah, I think Kentucky's they're up there for sure. I'd say at least in the SEC, probably at least top 3 at this point in the season.
Mm-hmm.
So going to the secondary, I mean, Maxwell Harrison, tied for fourth in the country in interceptions, has been phenomenal. And the secondary as whole has been good, but not as good as the rushing defense. What do they need to do to improve?
I think the biggest thing, is really pre-snap communication. I think that if we could get our pre-snap communication down better and impact, and having everybody in the secondary knowing exactly, what their coverage is, who they got, if it's man, or, communicating on switches, looking at the splits of the receivers. Is number 2 inside the hash? Is he outside the hash? Down in distance, things like that. Is to be able to play a process of elimination out there before the ball is even snapped. I think if we communicate across the board a lot better, I think you'll see a lot of other guys get involved other than Maxwell. He's done a phenomenal job for us so far. And the thing that Coach Stoops always preaches is that with our defense, the rush has got to complement the coverage, and the coverage has got to complement the rush. So right now we're seeing more of the complementary of the rush rather than we are with the coverage. But at the same time, we have seen glimpses of where this Kentucky secondary can go back and make some plays. So I expect them to be dialed in this week, especially knowing that Brock Bowers is out there creeping around on the field and got to be able to find him at all times. So I'm sure the communication will be, through the roof this week. It has to. It really does. It has to be on the roof this week.
Yeah, that's the only time our offensive has. I mean, the numbers kind of say otherwise, but the get Brock the ball offense has been successful thus far.
Yeah, man. I mean, that kid, he's a generational talent, or he really is. I mean, just watching him on film, he's a guy that you can put in the backfield from the wild position to get him involved in the run game, or you can put his hand in the dirt and run typical tight end routes, or you can put him out in the slot, almost like what the Kansas City Chiefs do with Travis Kelce, and allow his athleticism to go out there and really show what he's capable of. And you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I remember seeing something. Somebody was joking with Kirby Smart. I think it was in spring practice of maybe getting Brock some running back reps since he played running back in high school. And Kirby was like, "Yeah, we actually do. Have a couple sets where he's back there taking handoffs." So
Well,
this
he
is
would.
awesome.
Yeah, he would run a lot of like jet sweeps and things like that. I mean, he hasn't done it so much this year. I think he only has like 3 carries, but last year, I mean, he probably had 10-ish, right?
Yeah, I think he
Yeah,
had 10 total jet sweeps and something like 4 touchdowns on those because they typically ran them inside the 10.
I think he had like an
Um,
80-yard touchdown with one of them. I think he did it like the first play, like the Kent State game or something like that. I think I could be wrong, but he had a long one there, or like close to that formation. It's wild.
so off of Brock Bowers, do you know what type of alien he is? Because I'm convinced he's not human.
I mean, he's got to have something about him, man. Just because, like I said, he's the best tight end in college football right now. I mean, like I said, you could literally put him anywhere on the field. Hell, you could put him at wideout, and I'm
Mhm.
sure he's going to make some plays out there. So y'all got a good one down there, man. I wish you could have went to the draft last year, so we had to put up with him this year. But it
Yeah, I
is
don't
what
know
it
what we're
is.
gonna do when he leaves.
Hey, you guys are in the reload session now. You guys are in a position where you guys just reload and find a new athletic dude to put out there. So I think you guys will be all right.
We
Yeah,
like to call our lack of confidence the Mark Richt anxiety syndrome, and we love Mark Richt. Don't get me
yeah.
wrong,
Hmm.
but I'm convinced we're going to lose every game 5 minutes before kickoff every week. I have no idea what we're going to do next year. It's a problem.
Hey, like I said, man, you guys got Kirby Smart, who's obviously a great recruiter. Getting guys down there. It just seems like, especially with your all's defense, um, especially the last 3 years of how big, strong, and athletic your all's front seven is. Um, guys like Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter and all those guys up there. So I'm pretty confident you guys can put together a good recruiting class and maybe get some dudes in from the transfer portal and be just fine.
Yeah. All right. So, one other question that we have here, just about just Kentucky in general, actually has to do with Coach Stoops. So, going up to Michigan State, there's been a lot of talk about Big Ten country, around Big Ten country, about who's going to replace Mel Tucker at Michigan State. A lot of I mean, all my family still lives in the Detroit area. I'm originally from there and then I moved down here and went to school and everything. But a lot of my family's Michigan State fans, and they names they keep bringing up. Um, and really, Coach Stoops is one of them, and media up there as well. I mean, bring him up like constantly about who's going to fill in that spot, fill in that role of head coach for Michigan State. But do you think Coach Stoops is a lifer at Kentucky, or do you think there's a chance that he moves to another head coaching position at some point?
Man, with the recent success of Kentucky football, anytime that there's a head coach opening, I remember, when Florida State had their openings, there was always talks of Coach Stoops going back there, since he was a defensive coordinator or whatnot there. Um, when before Brian Kelly got the job at LSU, there was rumors floating around that they were looking for Coach Stoops, and I think at the end of the day, man, Coach Stoops has it made here. I
Yeah.
mean, the people of Lexington and the state and the people in the state of Kentucky absolutely love this guy. There's a reason why that Mitch Barnhart did what he did in signing him to that new contract extension to keeping him here in Lexington. And I think he's a lifer here in Kentucky, man. I really do. I think he's almost like Coach Cal for us, with what he does in basketball. And I think at the end of the day, there's going to be a statue of Coach Stoops before it's all said and done outside of Kroger Field. So, I mean, it could happen. I've seen, if you're involved in this game long enough, you see guys take different opportunities. But at the end of the day, he's got his guys here, and not only in his staff, he's got his players that he brought here, and just the pride that he has, for Kentucky football. I don't see him leaving, for a job. I mean, maybe down the line if Kentucky goes back to winning like maybe 2 or 3 games a year. But other than that, no, I think Coach Stoops is a lifer here in Lexington.
I hope so. I love him there. I mean, that's the perfect spot for anyone, really. I would love visiting Lexington. I mean, just everything about it just seems perfect for him. So just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, I mean, and he's got his own bourbon company too. So
Hell
I mean,
yeah.
he's in bourbon capital of the world. So he's right at home. He's almost as Kentucky as bourbon now. I mean, really, the people of Kentucky love him. He's got the blue collar mentality of growing up in Youngstown, Ohio, and what he brings, the excitement that he brings every single year for the fans. If he did leave, man, it would just be devastating for our fan base. But at the end of the day, I think that he understands that, this is the perfect setup for him.
Mm. Did anything ever come of, was it last year or the year before, the little, I don't know, miscommunication or misunderstanding between Coach Stoops and Coach Cal about like the basketball school comment?
that was a fun 6 weeks around here. That was so fun. No, it was just a misunderstanding. Then going back to how much pride Coach Stoops has, with this program and for his guys. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, you know, he's so respected and loved as a coach, not only for the fans, but especially for the players, because he makes you want to run through a wall for him. And so, because he's always going to go to battle for his dude. And so, I think he took, what Coach Cal said that maybe there was a miscommunication area there. But at the end of the day, he's going to fight for his dude. I can promise you that.
Love it. Love it.
So what is Coach Stoops' bourbon called, and is it distributed in Georgia? Because I mean, if you could look over to my right, you would see close to 100 different bottles of bourbon. I'm huge into it.
Hmm.
It's called RD1 Spirits, and I don't know if it's in Georgia yet, but I do know that it is in Florida
Okay.
and Tennessee.
Okay. I'm looking it up now. That's putting it on the list. There we go.
There you go.
If you've got another couple of minutes, you mind picking some games with us?
Yeah, man, let's get it.
All right, so we're going to give you the spread and the over/under. You don't have to pick the spread or the over/under. It's kind of like a context thing there. But we've got Oklahoma versus Texas, who is a 6.5-point favorite, over/under 60.5.
I'm going to take Texas in that one just because of the display they put up against Alabama earlier this year. I think Oklahoma has a good chance of hanging around with Texas for a couple of quarters, but at the end of the day, I think that Texas pulls this one off. And since it is the Big 12, and I know you said I don't have to pick the over or anything, but I am kind of a dabbling into sports gambling since it just got legalized in Kentucky. Thank God. I'll probably have to take out.
Yeah, that kills me. By the way, y'all have gambling and everything. We were just sitting down here, just doing everything.
Georgia ain't got it yet.
No.
No, man. I use a website out of Antigua.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, man. It's been a lot of fun, and not tooting my own horn here, but we've had some success so far in the sports gambling world.
Next game, Alabama 2.5-point favorite going to College Station, over/under 49.
This Texas Bama matchup has always, and especially in the last 2 years, has been probably one of the better games to watch throughout the season. Obviously, last year Texas A&M pulled it off with that field goal, and 2 years ago, I believe Alabama beat them by 4. Alabama's in in a weird spot, really. You never really see Alabama struggle the way that they have, especially at the quarterback position. I know that Jalen Milroe didn't pick up the win against Texas, and then the next week he doesn't play against South Florida, but then comes back out the next week and has a pretty good game. But at the end of the day, too, Texas A&M is missing their starting quarterback for the rest of the season. Um, I'm probably just with my gut. I'll probably have to go with Alabama.
Next game is, I think it's one of the more interesting games of the week. LSU 6.5 point favorite at Missouri, over under 63.5.
Well, LSU didn't have the best performance last week, and Missouri seems to be on the rise as of recent. But at the end of the day, I think that LSU goes to Missouri and takes care of business. I think, especially like I mentioned with Matt House, as defensive coordinator there, that's a guy that definitely lives up to his standard and needs his guys to play to that standard and won't accept anything less. I would imagine that after last week, they had one hell of a come to Jesus meeting with him on Monday, and definitely I miss and don't miss at the same time those meetings. But yeah, I think they get back on track this week and go down and take care of business against Missouri.
Arkansas going to Oxford. Ole Miss are 12 point favorites, over under 63.5.
I'll probably have to take Ole Miss in that one. They didn't get the outcome that they wanted against Bama a couple weeks ago. And it seems like Arkansas really struggled at times against Texas A&M last week. So I'm gonna have to go ride the lane train on this one and take Ole Miss on that one.
And then last game, Kentucky going to Athens. Georgia 14.5 point favorite, over under 48.
Man, when I remember when this spread first came out, I think it was 19, and I was like, boys, we got to hammer this. Like this, just for shits and giggles, we got to
To
hammer
be
this.
fair,
19.
I would have hammered Kentucky to cover the 19.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was it? What was the couple of years ago when we came to? I think it was like 20. I think it was 21 or 24, and we were driving the ball late in the fourth quarter, and Coach Gibbs throws a pass with like, I don't know, maybe like 9 or 10 seconds left, just so Kentucky could cover the spread.
Yeah.
Even if we may lose this game, I'm confident, in Kentucky and what they can do. But at the same time, like I've said, I just think Kirby Smart understands that in order for Kentucky to have, any kind of chance on offense to move the ball down the field consistently, they're going to have to be Georgia throwing. Right now, in the first 5 weeks of the season, it just doesn't seem that that's likely for our offense. And so, unless our tight ends and offensive line can really get after it and be able to have Ray Davis in there and gain 3-4 yards of carry, I don't see him doing what he did last week against Florida, obviously. But at the end of the day, honestly, like I'm always going to think Kentucky's going to win. I have to pick that. But at the end of the day, Kentucky has got to be able to find a way to get these receivers and tight ends the ball if they want to have any kind of success moving the ball down the field against this Georgia defense. They just got to. And with the way that Leary is, his confidence right now throwing the ball is in between the hashes, and I think that Georgia's going to see that on the film and really try to make him throw outside the hashes, maybe put some clouded corners out there, rotate the safeties pre-snap, and really try to mess with his vision and be able to go out there and force him to make a mistake. And so we'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens. Wish I was going down there this year, though.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us tonight. And just, I said it a few years ago when I sent you that message, but, thank you for what you said in that interview. It still helps to this day. Every time I, have a bad day occasionally, like I told you a few years ago, I'd just gotten home from deployment, and your whole cut yourself some slack. It helped a lot. So just personally, thank you once again for that, and really appreciate you coming on and talking to us.
Hey, man, thank you. Thank you for your service, man. Really do appreciate you and all the guys that go out there and fight for this country. So, yeah, man, you're never alone in this battle. and just keep it one day at a time. One foot in front of the other, and just have a positive outlook. And it's all about perspective. So you keep that perspective in check and know and trust and believe in yourself every single day of what you want your life to be. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that's in control. You're personally responsible for your outcome. And so, appreciate you guys having me on, man. Anytime you guys need me as a Kentucky correspondent, just let me know. I'd be happy to hop on with you guys.
Oh, for sure. And
Oh yeah.
anytime you want to come try and catch some redfish in Savannah, you just hit me up.
Now you're talking my language, brother. I'll definitely take you up on that.
Oh, absolutely. We'll go catch some redfish. I know some spots right next to River Street. We'll go down there, fish, go get some drinks on the river. It'll be a good day.
Hey, looking forward to it, man. I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good night. All right.
You too.
All right, thanks, man.
See y'all.
See you.
Once again, we want to thank Cash for coming on and talking to us tonight. It's he's busy this time of year. He does a lot of radio stuff for Kentucky football, so it means a lot that he was willing to come on and talk to us.
Mhm.
So let's get to the rest of these games. And you did a lot of a deep dive on this one. So your baby, your turn.
Talking about Kentucky and Georgia, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. So, okay, like John said, I did kind of a deep dive this morning, just kind of looking into stats here, just some background, some perspective on the series since Mark Stoops has got there. So, um, Mark Stoops has been there since he's been there 10 years. It's his 10th season. Or I'm sorry, this is his 11th season. He's 0-10 all time against Georgia as the Kentucky head coach. In those 10 years, the average score has been 33.3 to 12.7. So pretty much a 21-point margin of victory over those 10 contests. But it's gotten a little bit better, surprisingly, since Kirby's got there for Coach Stoops. So since Kirby got to Athens, the average score has been 26.2 to 10.8. So basically a 15-point margin of victory for Georgia there. So big improvements as both programs have gotten better, over that time. Saturday's game marks the third time in 6 years that the winner of this game will be in first place in the SEC East.
That's
Wild.
wild.
Yeah. Just who would have thought? In a division with Florida and in Tennessee. No, it's been
South Carolina.
Occasionally. But no, it's been Georgia, it's been Kentucky. Wild. Then this next one. So shout out to Caleb Tillman, aka Jamie, aka the Brock Bowers of the pod, for this one. He let us know that Kirby Smart has never lost a night game at Georgia as head coach. This is his 8th season, right?
Yes.
I think it's his 8th season. Undefeated in night games.
Home
it was kind of a sore spot.
Just at home.
Oh, at home. I'm not sure. No, because they lost against Alabama at night.
I was about to say
2020.
I don't remember what time that game kicked off.
I remember it being at night because I was driving around at night when that game was going on. But then again, it could have been, I don't know. The season started later, so I don't know. I think it was a night game.
I'm pulling it up now.
Yeah, but he's nonetheless he's undefeated in night games at home, as Georgia head coach. And as a matter of fact, as a program, Georgia has not lost a home game at home since 2009. Do you know who that team that beat them in 2009 was?
A home night game?
Yeah, the last time they lost a home night game.
2009.
2009. Do you know who that was?
They lost a lot of games in 2009.
They did. That was Joe Cox, right?
Yes, that was the Joe Cox year.
Big Joe Cox.
That was the last time Georgia lost to Kentucky. And I lived in Kentucky at that time. Oh. I'm going to say Georgia Tech.
Nope. It was Kentucky.
Well,
it was Kentucky.
All around it.
Yeah, I was like, I thought you had said it. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Good job. And then, no.
The Alabama game was a night game.
Okay.
So
yeah. Lost that one. But at home, Kirby undefeated at night as a team. It's been 13, 14 years since they've lost a night game in Sanford Stadium. So, we got that going for Georgia there. All right, as far as like stats go, a little bit of a deep dive here, just comparing the two teams. Kentucky, I think I don't know what the fuck number that
I
is,
think
but
that's supposed to be 21st.
21st.
Yep.
Second.
Two.
Two. All right, so Kentucky should be 21st in points per game on offense. They scoring 37 a game. Georgia's actually 15th at a 38.6. So, I mean, it's not that big of a margin of difference between the two there, but Georgia is 15th, Kentucky 21st. Excuse me. As far as points allowed, Kentucky's 20th, like you mentioned earlier when we were talking Cash. 15.2 points per game allowed, and then Georgia's actually 14th at 13 per game. Georgia played a little bit stiffer of competition, but again, 15 for Kentucky, 13 for us, not bad. Here's the parts that were actually kind of shocking to me, considering how much we've kind of criticized, Bobo and Carson and all that. Georgia's 10th in the country in passing yards per game at 332.6 per contest, while Kentucky, I don't know if you have it up. Just take a guess at where you think Kentucky lands on that.
I'd say somewhere in the top 40, but definitely in the bottom part of that top 40.
Worse.
Oh.
Worse. Significantly worse.
Oh.
Well, yeah, worse, yeah. They're at 76th in the country, so mid AF. 225 yards passing per game. Yeah. Georgia's also in the top 15 in yards per attempt at 9.19. So again, it's not as bad as we think it was, at least statistically, but I mean there's other things that
eye test is so deceiving.
It's frustrating. Like I leave every game feeling frustrated, then everyone's like, no, it's good. It's not that much worse than the years past. And then you look at the stats and it kind of backs it up, but it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't.
No.
Yeah. So just last few things here. So total offense, Georgia's 10th in the country, but top 10 offense. Under Mike Bobo, who'd have thought? But they're are averaging almost 500 yards a game. It's 496 per game in total offense. Kentucky is 65th, or just a hair under 400 yards at 396, so a whole 100 yards different. Total defense, Georgia is 16th, so not the top 2-3 that we're used to the last few years, but they're 16th. Kentucky is 19th, so almost parallel, equal there. And finally, red zone offense, the percentage of possessions that resulted in points after getting to the red zone. Georgia is 47th in the country. So there's a little, kind of validates us a little bit, even though I'd love to be wrong. But Georgia's 47th in the country, 88% of the time they at least get points when they're in the red zone. And then Kentucky is actually 100th at 76% of actually getting points within the 20.
Because I've got some things to say. Let me tell you guys something. So many people.
A little bit of a deep dive there. Rattling stuff off.
I will say it does make me feel better. I don't know if it makes me feel good. It makes me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
For the podcast sake, we obviously have to pick the spread.
Mm-hmm.
I got to take Kentucky on the spread. This team offensively and defensively has not shown me enough to think that they can win by 15 or more points.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate it. I would love to be wrong. I can't, and I don't want to put it on the record per se,
mm-hmm.
but I would also take the under if I was going to bet on this game.
I feel like I need to look it up because I was looking at it earlier. I don't remember what site I was looking at, but this game, at least the last 2 or 3, at least 2 years, I feel like I don't even remember what the score was in the 2021 game, but last year's
33-7.
10-3, 10-7.
Well, it was 16-6 last year.
Okay.
And 33-7 the year before.
Oh, okay. So maybe I'm thinking like before, like the monsoon game they had played in Athens when Kentucky didn't have a quarterback when they had
2019. That was
when they had Yeah. Okay. So it was a little bit further back. Everything's meshing together. Um,
Yeah,
I,
2021 was the it was a noon game. Um, it was might have been a 3:30. It was real early because I remember getting drunk downtown when the sun was still coming up.
it. Hmm. I feel like it was a 3:31, but again, I don't know. I'm not sure. But gosh, I've been going back and forth on it. Um, you know what? Against my better judgment, I'm gonna sip the Kool-Aid a little bit with everyone else saying we are shocked at what the point spread was. It's come down. Everyone, and obviously Vegas feels comfortable with that. I'm gonna take Georgia. I don't feel good about it. I'm gonna take them to cover that 14 and a half.
God, I hope you're
I've been wrong
right.
a lot. I've been wrong a lot. So what else is new?
I hope you're right. And
Mhm.
it is now time for calling the dogs, or we're if no one else starts calling, we're probably just going to rename it like Caleb's Corner or Tillman Talks or something.
Yeah.
But we need you guys to step it up. Phone number for you to step it up is 678-465-8020. It doesn't, honestly, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You can just be like, hey, my name is John. I live in Savannah. Go Dogs. Love the show. It'll make it. I promise.
Mhm.
Doesn't have to be
Yeah.
crazy. Doesn't have to be
Mhm.
wild. We would just love some more interaction, getting some different voices in here. I mean, Caleb already said he doesn't want us to rename it because he wants more people involved.
Mhm.
So, here is this week's Calling the Dogs.
All right, here we go. Time for Calling the Dogs, Week 6, Kentucky. And I've got no script. I've put no thought into this whatsoever. I'm doing it live, baby, because I've got some things to say. Let me tell you guys something. So many people are nervous for this game. And I get it. But there's something you got to realize. This game that Kentucky played where they blew up the run game that you're so nervous about was against the Florida Gators, who, need I remind you, have already lost to a third-string quarterback. So just keep that in mind. Going to give you a little bit of perspective on that. Here's some more perspective I can give you. If they haven't mentioned it in the podcast so far, because I asked them to, if they haven't, I'm going to say it now. Georgia has not lost a home night game in 14 years. 14 years. That's a mighty long time. That's a head coach and a half ago. So let's just be real about this. Georgia, at present, under Kirby Smart, does not lose home night games. Georgia, at present, under Kirby Smart, does not lose to Kentucky. And Georgia, at present, under Kirby Smart, still, despite everything we have seen the first 5 weeks, despite all of the hardships this team has had to go through and try to fight through, despite all the ways this team still needs to improve, they are still coached by Kirby Smart, who has always, always, always gotten his guys up when they need to get up for big games. And make no mistake, ranked versus ranked, this is a big game. Undefeated versus undefeated, this is a big game. And it's in these big games that our guys do what they do best. That is make people quit, make people never want to play them again. Now, will that happen this Saturday? I don't know. But one thing I do know is that Dog Nation better be ready to pile into Sanford Stadium, make that place loud, and make them go deaf on the field. See you at Sanford.
Once again, Caleb killed it on the Calling the Dog segment. Um, and just to piggyback off of one of his last statements, I want to not be able to hear Mike on the recording on Sunday. Um, I would love for him to have to like text me everything he says for me to respond to because of how loud the game is. My hearing's already screwed. It's not gonna make it worse. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
the VA already told me I have mild to moderate to severe hearing loss. Um, in
So
the
you're basically deaf then, right?
I don't even
They're
know.
telling you that?
I, the doctor looked like they were still in high school. Um, so I don't even know. Like do you have to graduate high school to be an ear doctor? I don't know these things.
They put three like 8-year-olds standing on top of each other in a white coat. It's like, oh, you have moderate hearing loss.
Well, what's wild is they literally said mild to moderate to severe. And it's like, so do I have no hearing loss or all of the hearing loss? And they were like,
Yeah, mild and severe are two different words.
yeah.
They have different meanings.
But regardless of the VA, because you know what they call a doctor that graduates to the bottom of their class?
A fucking doctor.
At the VA. But regardless of what they say, I want Sanford to be so damn loud that I go to bed with a headache. I want it to be so loud that I am scared it's going to fall down. Like, Tennessee last year was cool. I feel like the rain on the metal bleachers had a little bit to do with the noise. Just going to be honest there.
Wait, is that fake noise then?
No.
Are you
No,
kidding?
it's real noise.
No.
It's
Okay.
real noise. And it was extremely loud. But
Mhm.
let's do it again. Because if we're being honest, Kentucky is the only undefeated team Georgia's going to play at home this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Potentially Missouri, but that's still 3 weeks away.
Oh.
It's 4 weeks away. If Missouri's undefeated in 4 weeks, we can talk then. But in all reality, it's probably the only undefeated team Georgia's going to play at home since week 1.
Might be the best game of the season at home.
Might be. Ole Miss is still up there.
Yeah.
We'll see where the chips fall at that point. But y'all show up. Y'all be loud. And even if you're at home, lose your voice. Put the kids to bed with some headphones on. You know, go outside, watch it on your phone. I don't care. Because the atmosphere, it doesn't matter. Dog Nation is a community. If you're loud at home, if you're hype at home, I promise you, the energy you put into it will be felt. Because I guarantee you, there's no one in red and black that's physically capable of standing that will be sitting come Saturday night between the hedges. So y'all show up and be loud if you go into the game.
And if you have someone in front of you not loud, just put me on speakerphone and I'll just yell on the phone.
Yeah, I will once again be bringing earplugs for the people to my right because they will probably be sitting down trying to not be loud. Tea and Crumpets crowd has gotten younger.
Well, as we can tell from the Savannah, the Alumni Association down here.
Yeah, for us to be the Nothing Finder podcast and drunk and obnoxious, you know, I wish we had more listeners in Savannah and could do watch parties somewhere where we could just like, oh, you know what? Georgia's first score, everybody gets a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And
That'd be
then
dope.
and then just get drunk and obnoxious and loud and you know, we need more fans in the area, but you know, we'll get there. Maybe.
Yeah.
Hopefully, probably.
It will. It will.
Alright, you know who will be drunk and obnoxious this weekend? Undoubtedly.
Who?
The LSU Tiger fans that
got
are
him.
going to Como as 6.5-point favorites, over under 63.5. That's Missouri. If you don't know Como, Columbia, Missouri, I just feel like I should say that because I didn't say the team name. Biggest thing about this game, neither team has a defense this year. Fun fact. Both of these teams have hit the over in every game they have played this year.
Ooh.
Combined over is 10-0 on this game. You know, go ahead and throw it out there. I'll probably put a little bit on the over here. It's not one of my best bets because we try to not include those at the bottom of the sheet. But I'm taking the over on this one. So, for scoring defense, right? LSU tied with Middle Tennessee at 109th. It's not good.
Yeah, no.
132 teams in FBS, and they're at 109th. They're allowing 31 points per game. And if you take out Mizzou's FCS opponents, they're allowing 23.5 points per game. So right out of one score difference in scoring defense. LSU is seventh in the country in scoring offense, scoring 44 points a game. That does drop to 37 when you take out FCS opponents because they did score 72, 73, something like that against McNeese or Grambling early in the
Hmm.
season. Mizzou, when you only count their FBS opponents, are scoring 31.25 points per game, less than a one score difference. So, to me, just math here. Not a mathologist. Be honest. You guys know I don't really do numbers. But if Georgia Public Schools taught me to read well enough, a one score difference in scoring defense and less than a one score difference in scoring offense tells me that Mizzou at bare minimum covers this spread. And if we're
Oh.
being honest, they've looked more impressive against better teams.
Hmm. So you're taking Missouri. It's actually come down. It's 5.5 now.
Still taking Missouri to cover. I
Okay.
think if LSU wins, it's a 3 point game. I think there's a 50-50 shot Mizzou wins this game.
Yeah.
But I think if LSU wins, it is a 3 point game.
Okay. And for our records, are you taking the over on this? Not necessarily betting it, but just for
Yes.
us. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I'm with you on the over
Hammer
there.
the over if you're gambling, and please do so with BetUS if you are.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm with you on the over for that as well. I'm actually gonna go the opposite with you on the actual game itself. I'm gonna take LSU to cover that 5.5 now, and simply put, it's just because of how we were burned earlier this year by Missouri that I'm not still quite over it. I'm a fan scorned by those Tigers in this particular Tiger Bowl. So, I mean, I
I
want
am
Missouri.
personally two
Yeah.
and one betting on Missouri this year.
Mhm. It's the Kansas State game for me that irritated me. I mean, I'm glad they. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm glad they won. It makes Georgia's strength of schedule, better and all that, and makes that for a better game in Athens when they come there later this year. But I'm going to go with LSU. I think they're going to have to bounce back. I can't see them losing 2 weeks in a row. I mean, still think it's going to be a shootout, just like you talked about. Like, convinced me that it would be. But at 5.5, win by 6 or 7, I can definitely see that being a thing. Even though Como is very different or not difficult to play in. I'm going to go with LSU just to be different.
Um, I was gonna say it's a night game, but it's a noon game. So the noon
Nooner
slate,
and a Nooner and Como, no Como.
the noon slate's good this week. You got Texas and OU and Missouri LSU.
Texas OU is the big noon game, isn't it?
Always.
All right,
According to ESPN, LSU has a 70.3% chance to win this game.
but what about to cover though? That's the main. That's the big question.
It does not say.
Oh, you can get in for that into that game for as low as $55.
If you could get to Columbia for $55, I might spend $110 this weekend. Probably not. I'm going to Georgia, Kentucky. But
Yeah, that's that's a better game. Yeah.
all right, another game that I think is going to be phenomenal: Arkansas at Ole Miss. Ole Miss
Mhm.
12-point favorite, over under 63.5. And I kind of talked about it when we were talking with Cash. This is one of the best, least talked about rivalries in college football. Insane games, more times than not. Great endings. My personal favorite is that 2015 game that I already talked about earlier. And then in 2021, Arkansas scores at the last second. Kick the field goal to tie, go for two to win. They went for two and didn't get it. And Sam Pittman said afterwards, it might have been an interview, it might have been post game, I don't really remember. He said, I told the guys before the kickoff, we're going to go downfield, we're going to score, and we're going to go for two. And if that doesn't make you love Sam Pittman more, you hate people. Like, I don't. Sam Pittman's one of my favorite people in college football, especially with that quote.
Yeah.
Um, I will say this season though, Ole Miss has been the far better team. We love Sam Pittman, we love Arkansas, but they've struggled against all the good teams they've played. Lost to BYU at home, and
Mm-hmm.
then lost to LSU in Death Valley. Both of those were close games,
Hmm.
but they did lose both of those games.
Yeah.
Um, with all that being said, I'm not sure if the games of the last 2 weeks drained Ole Miss or ignited them to go down the stretch. While their Atlanta dreams are still alive, I'm just not sure about the 12 points here. Ole Miss is 34th in scoring defense, and Arkansas is 42nd in scoring offense. So, to me, this game is entirely won or lost on Arkansas's offensive line, which has not been good this year. Um, Going out on a limb, probably going to have a 500 week at this point. But I've got Ole Miss to win, but I think KJ Jefferson puts on the cape to cover and make it exciting.
Hmm. I'm with you 100% on that. I mean,
Let's
don't-
go.
yeah, I don't have too much to add to that. I mean, like I said, I do think Ole Miss is going to win, but 12 points is a lot. Especially like you talked about the emotional letdown after playing arguably your two biggest games of the year outside of Georgia in November. Um, love KJ. It's going to be a problem. Neither team can stop anybody. So in that case, again, I'm taking Arkansas. They get 12 points there. I'm gonna take that, and then I'm also gonna take the over on that 63.5 as
Love
well.
it.
I feel good about that.
Love it. Life's too short to take the under.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, I will say this is going to have to be a game that I record and watch on Sunday
Hmm.
because it also kicks off at 7:30.
Ooh,
Yep. Yep.
ooh. Okay. There's another. I was gonna say Michigan and Minnesota. Again, that doesn't really matter for anybody listening to this, really. But that's also at 7:30. Notre Dame and Louisville is also at 7:30.
A lot
It's
of
a
good
lot of games at
7:30 games
7:30.
this week.
Yeah, definitely.
Get your DVRs ready because it's a great week of college football. We've talked about what 6 games,
Hmm.
and there's what 3 or 4 more that we wanted to
Yeah,
talk about and didn't know if we had time.
yeah. So I think so. Washington is idle this week, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'll get into my bandwagon team here. So if you guys listened or not last week, but a few days ago, John convinced me to stay on the bandwagon with Texas Tech. This week they're going to Waco to drink the Kool-Aid to play the Baylor Bears. It was a pick 'em at a few days ago, but it actually moved to Texas Tech being a 1 point favorite. So again, still basically pick 'em. Over under at 57.5. And Baylor's not very good. And I put this down somewhere. I can't remember where I put it.
Baylor lost
Baylor
to Texas
beat,
State.
they did, but then they beat. Now I'll talk about this later on. But Baylor beat UCF last week. UCF gave up 26 unanswered points to Baylor to lose that game. 26 unanswered to Baylor to lose.
John Rice Plumlee was out in that game though.
Oh, that's good context. I didn't realize that. Okay,
Yes. Yes.
okay.
I don't know the status of his health. I just know that UCF was without John Rice Plumlee in that game.
Okay. That does make a difference. Okay, so I'll try to look that up later on. But still injured. All right. So with that said, I'm going to take Texas Tech to win. That again is a 1 point favorite. Still have a chance to get to Dallas to play presumably the winner of this Red River rivalry game at Big Noon there. But I'm riding with the Raiders again, even though they don't have Tyler Shuck there at quarterback. They didn't really need him last week. Hopefully, they don't need him against Baylor, but again, riding with the Red Raiders in this case.
I'm trying to look up as of 5 hours ago. There was no word on if John Rice Plumlee was going to play this week. So apparently, it was a pretty serious injury that knocked him out of the game.
Okay. So I feel better about that, and then the one bet I'm going to talk about later. But do you want to do yours next, or do you want me to keep going?
No, I'm gonna do my Washington pick. I don't care if they're going against the bye week. Take the spread. They're gonna win this game by 100. They're gonna
Mhm.
have their second string in before the end of the first half, and nobody, especially a team of nobody, is gonna stop Washington.
They ain't play nobody, John.
Definitely ain't playing nobody this week. All right, you ready for your bets?
All right. Yep. Let's go. All right.
Fade
So,
Central if you're inclined.
yep. Last 2 weeks have been atrocious, to say the least. If you needed a reminder, if you didn't get this far in the last pod, I went 4-9 last week, 24-26 overall. So again, I'm in that fade territory. So far, not feeling super confident what we talked about already, but I do feel confident about about what I'm going to talk about here. So first off, go down a little bit. Where to go? Okay, I did keep that. All right, sorry. All right, so excuse me. Marshall is going to NC State, going to Raleigh. NC State's a 6.5 point favorite. NC State beat teams like Virginia by 3, and then VMI, so Virginia Military Institute, yeah, um, by a lot. They won by like 30 plus. But then they also got blew out by Notre Dame and then lost by 3 to Louisville, which again I don't think Louisville's that good, even though they're a fringe top 25 team and they're at 25 right now. But
Their
uh,
defense is good.
yeah, yeah. I mean that's what won them the game. I think it was like 13-10. So
It
like
was.
yeah.
Hammered
So
the under on Friday night live betting.
oh, there you go. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Um, and then Marshall was already 1-0 against the ACC, beating Virginia Tech in Blacksburg 24-17. And don't forget, they Marshall did beat Notre Dame last year in South Bend, even though different teams, different dynamics, all that. But nonetheless, moment's not too big for them. Marshall may win outright, but I'm taking them plus 6.5 in this game at a minimum. So
This might throw a little bit of a monkey wrench in.
okay.
NC State is not starting Brennan Armstrong this week. They're sitting him for their backup. Does
Mhm.
that change your pick?
No, it's probably I'm very naive to it. I'm not super familiar with the quarterback or the
Well, if
situation there.
my thing
Huh.
is if they haven't already played their backup, then he's not
Mhm.
better than Brennan Armstrong.
Yeah. hmm Yeah. It's
All
not
right,
been
you
looking
ready? I
good. I
was just
thought.
trying to throw something at you.
Yeah. No, it's all good. I'm not I'm more confident in Marshall. It's more of a indictment on NC State and just the that tier of the ACC than it is anything else. But yeah, I'm taking Marshall at 6.5. They're getting may win
I,
outright.
I like it.
Not
I
sure.
like it.
Yeah. All right. So going on from there, Oregon State's a 9.5 point favorite at Cal. And Cal is actually a little bit better than expected, but also, or so is Oregon State. Uh, DJU is playing better than he ever did at Clemson for the most part. I'm going to say Oregon State covers that 9.5, so they'll win by at least 10. Both teams play zero defense. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. My bad. I was going back to the Arkansas one, or Arkansas one. All right, but yeah, Oregon State covers that 9.5. Next, Michigan's going to Minneapolis to play Minnesota. Over, I'm taking the over at 46. Last week against Nebraska in Lincoln, Michigan almost covered that score on its own against the Huskers, and basically, like I said, basically did the thing that we wanted Georgia to do to Auburn. They did to Nebraska last week. As a matter of fact, I kept looking at both, like while we were out at Coach's Corner, looking at both screens and just seeing Michigan just continuously just run up the score on Nebraska, and then we're struggling against Auburn on the other screen. So um, also flip side of that, Minnesota almost gave up almost 40 points to Northwestern 2 weeks ago, so they suck. So I'm going with but they do score a little bit though. So again, I'm going to over 46 on that Michigan at Minnesota game.
And Nebraska has a good defense. So with what
Mm-hmm.
Michigan did to them last week,
Mm-hmm.
the I don't understand how the over is only 46.
Maybe they're thinking that just Nebraska can't. or not Nebraska, maybe Minnesota can't score. But I mean, they've shown in glimpses that they can. Like they're not, piss poor. They're not Iowa. So like it seems low. That's why I'm hitting the over on that.
No, I like it.
Yeah. And then last one, kind of talked a little bit about this already, but Central Florida UCF is going to Lawrence to play Kansas. Kansas is a 2-point favorite currently, and just some context at UCF. UCF is 0-2 in the Big 12 thus far. Lost to Baylor by 1 last week, and Kansas State 2 weeks ago, 44-31. In the Baylor game last week, UCF gave up 26 unanswered points to lose the game in Waco, which we talked about. John Rice Plumlee wasn't playing, but again, it doesn't sound like he is this time, so that makes a difference. And this has really nothing to do with it, but talked about Gus, changing the date of Auburn and Georgia. I'm sorry, Georgia and Auburn. But he totally, in his time at UCF, totally got rid of the war on I-4 with UCF. Or I'm sorry, with USF. Again, it's changing conferences, but if you look back at history with changing dates of rivalries and stuff like that, Gus's time in Orlando may be coming up or coming to an end fairly soon. If we're just going to base it off that, but I just thought that was interesting. I thought
Gus to Michigan State.
Yeah, I'm I'm down with that. I'm not worried about it. Okay. Much rather him there than Urban Meyer. Although that would be fun though. That would be fun. But I don't know if there's any credence, like any credibility to that rumor. I saw it a few other places too that Urban Meyer was going to interview at Michigan State. I don't know that to be true.
Well, Urban Meyer allegedly put out that he was not even going to interview for the job.
And everything Urban Meyer says is truthful.
Correct. That's why I said allegedly.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know, we'll see. But one other thing about this, Kansas is 3-0 at home this season. It's won each game by at least 11 in Lawrence. So with that said, I'm taking Kansas and that the 2 points that they're favored by.
I actually like yours maybe more than I like a couple of mine, if I'm being honest.
Nope, it's kiss of death. Don't do it. Don't do it.
And I put mine in first, so that tells you about the confidence level of my picks this week. But I'm starting off with the one that I'm least confident in, and that is Syracuse at UNC over 59. UNC's coming off a bye week. They're also averaging 35.75 points per game on offense, 22 points a game on defense. They got to hit the over.
Mm-hmm.
The only concern is that Syracuse does have a good defense. I'm hoping that Drake May and all of their talent can overcome Syracuse good defense, especially because Syracuse hasn't really played anybody. I mean, they beat the crap out of a few teams like Western Michigan. Western Michigan's possibly one of the worst teams in the FBS this year, so take that for what it is. So I'm taking the over on that, but I will say that is the least confident I am in any of the picks this week.
Mm-hmm.
Taking Notre Dame at Louisville under 54. And I say that because both of these teams have great defenses, both in the top 30 in scoring defenses, and both have shown that their offense can struggle against good defenses. So if you're giving me 54 points, taking the under.
I
don't know what the spread is. Notre Dame's probably covering the spread. It's probably still hitting the under.
I want to say the spread was like 6.5. I think I was looking at that before when we had when we were thinking about talking about this game more in depth, but I think it was like 6.5.
I may take the spread, not 100%, but this game definitely hits the. Both of these defenses are too good. Both of these offenses have struggled at times. I mean, Louisville's offense last week, granted it was against Brendan Armstrong and NC State. They still showed out against that NC State team. Allowed less points than Notre Dame did against NC State. Take the under on that one.
It is 6.5. Notre Dame's 6.5 point favorite. The over under is at 54. Currently, as of 9:38 p.m. on the East Coast.
I'll let you know Saturday morning if I take the spread for Notre Dame on that one. I'm not sure yet, But
Mm.
this is a big spread. I hate big spreads. But Clemson, minus 21 at
Ooh.
Wake Forest. Wake got beat 30-16 by Georgia Tech. And almost lost to Old Dominion in a 3-point game.
Oh, keep in mind, Georgia Tech lost to Bowling Green bad last week at home. So
They
Georgia Tech,
paid Bowling Green $1.1 million to beat them.
I think the bigger story there is Georgia Tech had $1.1 million to pay somebody to come play there.
Well, it's a private school. They just took it out of tuition. They don't
Mm.
have the same regulations that Georgia does.
Oh, there we go.
I mean, Wake's just not a good team this year.
Mhm.
If I'm being entirely honest, I think Clemson's able to get this 21-point spread fairly easily. This is on the cusp of how big of spreads that I will actually put money on, but I really think that that Wake is just so bad that Clemson's able to cover that 21.
Yeah, Sam Hartman ain't walking through that door for Wake.
No,
Neither is Tim Duncan or Chris Paul. Not that they would play football, but
they'd be
might be a
better
little
than
bit
who
better.
they got out there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next one, Maryland going to the Horseshoe to play Ohio State. They are 20-point underdogs. This is a 5-0 Maryland team that has scored over 40 points multiple times this season against decent-ish competition.
Mm-hmm.
Maryland almost beat Ohio State last year, and if I remember correctly, it was really a blown pass interference call that stopped them from going down the field to score.
Yeah.
And if I'm being entirely honest, Maryland has had a much more explosive offense this season than Ohio State, so there's absolutely no way Ohio State wins this game by 20 points. 21 or
Don't
more, I should say.
don't forget that Maryland does have Tulia Tagovailoa. So let's go.
Arguably the better Tagovailoa.
Yeah. Dude, he can freaking play. Maryland is probably, and I heard some people talk about this, and I agree with them. Maryland, if they played in the Big Ten West, because again, geography really doesn't matter. So if you move them over there, Maryland would win the Big Ten West.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it would be kind of a game with Wisconsin, but they're the fourth best team in the conference, and it's a shame that they're in the same division as Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State.
I was about to say, as the three best teams in the conference.
Yeah, they're solid, man. I was gonna go with this until I saw you take it. So
You can double down on it. I don't see a way that Ohio State beats a Power 5 team by 20.
no, especially a conference game at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
Last but not least, Arizona at USC over 71.5. This is just my weekly bet the over on USC until proven otherwise.
Yeah, that's sound.
They are they've played 5 games so far this year, and they are 4-1 on the over. Just bet the over.
Which one did they miss? The
Stanford.
Colorado? Oh.
Stanford, I want to say it was 79, and they scored 77, 76, something like that.
Over under was 79. Okay.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah. But USC didn't even have their starters in at any point in the second half. It was 49-3 at halftime, and they
Lincoln Riley don't care about
back out there.
Lincoln Riley don't care about the gamblers.
No. Just another reason to not like Lincoln Riley unless his team's hitting the over.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing I'll say about the Maryland and Ohio State kind of just series. I want to say it was Urban Meyer's last year in Columbus. Maryland almost won that game too in Columbus, and it looked like Urban Meyer was going to die on the sideline. It just everything was just pegging him hard, and he just couldn't handle it.
Was he pulling a Sanford and Son and oh my heart?
I mean, that's his go-to move.
That is his go-to move.
Go eat a sad piece of pizza, Urban. Go sit
right,
on your
guys.
carton.
We're doing the same thing we do every time we come on here and talk to you. Follow the Instagram at nothing.finer.pod, Twitter at finerpod. Facebook and YouTube. Search us there. Any 5-star rating and review will get you a sticker if you send us a screenshot. Do not forget to get in this ASW giveaway. We are picking the winner Friday at midnight. So go ahead and jump in there. Get on that. As of right now, we already have a winner because only one person's joined. So if you join, it's
Are you
a 50-50
sure?
shot.
I thought I've had a few people tell me they were in it. Are you sure?
Did they tag somebody in the post?
I thought so. I don't know. I'll have to get on them. I'll ask them.
It'll be a joint venture to determine that part.
Okay.
All right. So we may have one person, we may have more. I'm not entirely sure. We posted it in a lot of places. But as always, remember there is nothing finer in the land
Then a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan.